Hey guys, Ryan here. And it's been a while since I've recorded a video. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about loneliness. We've all heard about, the loneliness epidemic going on, especially male loneliness. And I want to talk about kind of the difference between being alone versus loneliness and the experience of loneliness and what some of the, causes might be for loneliness in a given individual, and then some of these strategies that we can try to explore to overcome loneliness over time. Because, of course, we know that with sort of a rising and increase in social media use and disconnection at a physical level, paired with a number of other societal factors and just individualistic factors, we're seeing that more and more people are experiencing this sort of state of loneliness. And as we know, one of the main sort of causes of, you know, suicide, people ending their lives, is that they feel as though they are alone in the world. They feel as though their problems can't be shared or can't be solved. And there's a general sense that when somebody is deeply lonely and also in despair, then we see sort of the point of existence dissolving. And the part of the reason behind that, of course, is like we as humans, we're social creatures. All animals tend to be somewhat social. There are, of course, examples of animals in the wild that aren't. But humans, we've evolved over thousands and thousands of years to exist in communities, exist in tribes, be interconnected, and support one another in any kind of adventure in life, whether that's just survival with food, finding shelter, warmth, places to stay, or the classic adage, takes a village, right, to raise a child. We are embedded in our communities. We are embedded in each other. And when we become lonely, when we become that that state of feeling as though we aren't a part of that greater whole, it can lead to a ton of complications. And again, before I get into that a little more, I wanted to share a bit about sort of my experience with loneliness and the difference. Again, we'll define between lonely and being alone, and then I'll share a bit about my experience here. So to quickly define it, being alone does not mean that you are lonely. Many people are comfortable being alone, and being able to be comfortable while you're alone is a very powerful thing, right? If you can go into isolation and really be great in your relationship with yourself and the relationship to the world in isolation of other human beings, is a very powerful and beautiful thing. It's also quite natural. So just because you're alone, not around other human beings, does not mean that you're experiencing the sensation and experience of loneliness. Loneliness is the experience of whether or not you're around other people, you still feel as though you do not belong to the community as a whole. You feel as though you are separate or individual or ostracized or isolated. Think of it like, think of it being like being exiled from a tribe. It's like you're part of a tribe. The tribe exists, but for some reason you're not in it. And so you know that you could be in it, but you're not. And that's a lonely feeling. That's where you feel like you don't belong, basically. And that's a very different experience. That's a very difficult experience to go through for a human being. My experience with loneliness started a very long time ago. Started when in my teen years. It was when I really started to encounter not only some pretty significant upheavals in my life and sort of what you might call a traumatic experiences in my life, but also the introduction of drugs and alcohol, and the combination of those two things. What happened for me was that I started to learn that people might not be as safe as I thought they once were, and that people could hurt me, people could lie to me, people could deceive me, and people that I trusted and were close to me no longer felt like I could fully trust them. And so therefore I started to shelter myself, both on a communication level and in a vulnerability level, and also on a physical level. So I began to physically isolate and become alone. And then on the more communication level and emotional level, I began to shut myself off, building a bit of a boundary between what I felt inside, what I thought, and what I actually communicated. And that started to create a sense of loneliness. And that sense of loneliness persisted throughout my life going forward. It continued to get worse and worse. where I would be in communities, be in groups of people. I was accepted by a group. I shared interests with that group. I was part of friend groups and circles and clubs or communities or whatever it might be, but I never felt like I belonged and I never felt a part of. So I was always very lonely and I always felt very, very on my own. And for a long time, that was okay for me, especially because through that time, I was really numbing all of that with drugs. And so when I could numb it with drugs, then what the drugs were doing were giving me that feeling of companionship. It was giving me that feeling of everything's okay, just like that feeling you get when you're really enmeshed with other human beings in a positive way. The drugs were giving me that feeling for a very long time until eventually they stopped doing that. And that's where they say in recovery circles and in places where people are trying to get off of drugs and alcohol is that eventually the solution becomes the problem, right? And for me, the solution was the problem very early on, but it became even bigger and bigger of a problem as time went on because as I went on, I I became less and less capable of communicating authentically with other people, and I became less and less trusting of other people. And so that led to sort of a deeper armoring internally. And that led to a big barrier between sort of what's in my heart, what do I feel, what do I think, and what I actually put on. So I had a mask that I wear that would really hide me from any sort of potential emotional injury that'd come from another person. So let's talk about that. Why did I, in that circumstance, become very lonely? I kind of explained it. Why could you become lonely, right? Why would a person develop loneliness? Well, basically, what can happen? There's a number of ways you can slowly become lonely, but typically, what it is there's a disconnect between the internal thoughts, feelings, and sensations, and what is sort of expressed and connected with another human being. And so that can be a communication problem where we're just not um, trusting or capable of actually expressing fully what's inside. That can also be that can also truly be a disconnect on the outside where the people you're around are in such mismatch with how you feel inside that even with your when you're with certain people they are so different from you and understanding you and how you think and feel about the world that you can feel lonely just by fact that these people live and think in such a dramatically different way than you, right? And can be so dramatic that you can't bridge the gap. Usually, with healthy individuals, you can always bridge that gap. But when we're talking about, say maybe around certain other people who are addicts or sociopaths or narcissistic or people who are hyper materialistic and then people who are hyper outdoorsy, it would be very hard to bridge that gap. So if you're kind of in the wrong environment, then it's very natural to feel sort of lonely in that circumstance as well. However, a lot of the time, what's happening, especially in say the male loneliness epidemic, is that there is what we have is an armoring internally. So there's been hurt. Society has told you not to express a certain way, or you've been shamed in your childhood for communicating your needs or having needs or expressing yourself openly, letting your emotions flow. Maybe you had outbursts with anger or joy as a child, and those things were snuffed and snubbed by your parents or your brothers and sisters or your aunts and uncles or whoever was around primarily in your life. Those people were snuffing that natural expression. See, like when we were born, we don't have any issue with loneliness. It's not something that's natural, really. It just kind of we naturally express and we naturally gravitate to those who kind of also communicate well with us. And so we generally don't have a huge issue in early years with loneliness because we are constantly authentically expressing. And so the world is mirroring back that expression and we are getting fully seen, right? And so loneliness is that experience of not really being fully seen or understood. So, so we've got that piece there. Somewhere, somehow, a trauma, a learned pattern has caused you to start to push down parts of yourself, areas of yourself that you feel don't belong. And so what that does is it creates a filter, right? A communication filter. So there's the generation of a feeling in the moment. There's a generation of a thought, a funny quip, an idea, and you think to express that. You would naturally express that, but there's a filter that it's passing through now. Is that acceptable? Am I going to get a negative reaction? Is this person going to like me if I say that? XYZ. And so a lot of the time is these natural expressions don't make it through these filters that build up over time. And the amount of traumas progress, the amount of time that's progressed, the amount of bullshit that's accumulated creates more and more layers, more filters for you to go through before you express, right? So it's basically this experience of your language that's coming out of your mouth compared to what is going on inside. You're passing all your thoughts and feelings through maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 different filters to make sure that what comes out is acceptable, to make sure you're received well, to make sure that people like you, to make sure that you don't hurt someone, to make sure that you're not going to get hurt by someone. So it's this protective energy. It's this very calculated energy, and it happens automatically, right? When this has happened for a long time, it's very automatic, and because that's automatic, it starts to happen across all fields of life. Friends, coworkers, parents, lovers, doesn't matter. Your psyche, your nervous system is in protector mode. And so you're now communicating at this level across all areas of your life. And so that starts to generate a disconnection, and that results in loneliness. Right. So we've established kind of some of the ways that we can feel lonely, whether it's environmental, or whether it's kind of this more learned pattern of not being able to fully express your needs, your thoughts, your feelings, and what you find funny, like anything that is kind of embodying you at the core, is a big part of it, right? And I want to address another one too, because it really plays in here in a crucial way, and that's judgment. Because what this all can boil down to, we look at the people pleasing, or the, again, wanting to be liked, wanting to fit in, tribal mentality. But at the end of the day, what's happening here is we're engaging in a form of self-judgment. So assuming we're no longer in the situation where we were traumatized or hurt, we know where we're no longer in danger of those things happening theoretically. Then what's happening is now we have a self-regulated mechanism, like those filters that we thought we're actually judging ourselves all the time. Judging. Is this okay? Am I okay? Is this right? And at the same time, what's happening is we're judging everybody else typically, right? We're really assessing the situation. You were looking to see, gauging others' movements, thoughts, feelings, expressions, and sort of really on a hyper alert state. And that's not a great state for authentic communication to come through. And so what we're doing there, we're judging ourselves deeply. Then we're judging others deeply, right? We're starting to have judgments come up about others. And then what we end up doing, because all this is happening, again, it's all for good reason. You learn to judge others because you've learned to try to delineate who's safe and who's not. And you try to delineate who you can be yourself around and who you can't, but no one really feels safe. So there's always a judgment that you can pull that makes that person kind of fit into a box, so you can understand them and you can know how to self-filter yourself in a way that you can chameleon and fit your way in. So you're judging yourself, you're judging other people. And now what's happening is you are now projecting onto other people, because what you do is kind of what we do as humans is we assume that other people think and behave in the same way that we do. And so if we are constantly in a judging state, and we are constantly in this self-flagellation state, and we're constantly in this limiting state, this tends to amplify that feeling of distrust, and also that feeling of constriction that comes as the antithesis to connection. Basically, it's like fear and connection can't really go hand in hand. So you're now assuming that the people you're around, even your close friends, your family, your new coworkers, you now think that they are judging you as much as you are judging yourself. And so what happens is this state gets even more amplified. Now we're through the roof. The filters start to stack, because now not only am I judging myself and I'm assessing and judging others, but they are also judging me. And so now every communication becomes a performance. And every single communication becomes a test that you have to pass. You have to say the right thing, do the right thing, behave the right way, stand the right way, shake hands the right way. Everything becomes this test that you need to pass. And at this stage of where things can go, and this isn't going to be for everybody, I'm sure if you got this far, you relate to some of this or all of this, but it doesn't mean that it fits your situation perfectly. Maybe just one of these things is happening, right? Maybe it's just an environmental thing for you, or maybe it's really just that feeling of not fully being safe, right? Whatever it might be. But let's just say you get to that place. now the entire world becomes a threat. The entire world becomes a threat. Every person is a judge, jury, executioner. And so are you. You are now the one judging everybody else, and you know that they are judging you based off of what you believe. And so now every interaction becomes this make or break situation. Where is this person going to like me? Am I going to like them? Are they going to abandon me? Am I going to abandon them? Are we going to stay together? Are we going to fight? Can I handle the conflict? Like all these things. And that goes and goes and goes and goes. And soon what we find is that there's no more joy in connecting with others. There's no more connection left because there is this mass of filters, this massive performance going on. And of course, that is not a place any human wants to be in for a very long time. Now, a lot of people are in that for a very long time. This creates a lot of agony. And part of the reason that, this loneliness is also agonizing is because what it is on a very fundamental level is not feeling seen. You're not feeling seen. You're not feeling a part of. You're not feeling human at the end of the day, because part of being human is kind of to be seen, to be understood. And that's where we see the connection between loneliness and people saying, enough is enough. I'm going to take my life. Because eventually the pain of being alone, lonely, misunderstood, always on trial, it becomes too much. And that was where we see the end of a lot of people's lives. So what I want to go to now is, okay, well, like, what do we do to build connection? What do we do to sort of undo that loneliness a little bit? And this is going to be very piecemeal for a lot of people, myself included. Like this is the work. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a small bite-sized thing that we do and we practice when we can get mindful enough to do it. So here's a few things we can do. So when we're in the next situation, social situation, where we feel not really there, we're not connecting, we feel stifled, we feel uncomfortable, we don't really feel connected. That's the breeding ground for loneliness right there. And that's where we can attack it. So how can you attack it? Generally, what happens is when we're afraid to express how we really feel, we become very agreeable, because we don't want conflict. We don't want to be pushed out even further because we couldn't fathom being further away from people than we already are. So what we do is we become very agreeable in hopes that brings us closer, but it unfortunately fails. So an exercise you can do is, especially in really inconsequential situations, like it's honestly a very much more fun to do it this way too, is you can throw out a kind of, contradictory or maybe controversial or just kind of against the grain opinion that maybe the group or multiple people are really agreeing with and really vibing with. And you can almost just kind of throw out, not for the sake of being contradictory, but when you genuinely have a contradictory take, try not to hold it back. Just like try for once to just like say that. I'm thinking, like, for example, you're all in a friend group and we're all talking about breakfast cereals, and we're talking about, oh, I love you're the one guy, I love Reese's Puffs. Oh, I love Reese's Puffs too. And Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Oh, I love Cinnamon Toast Crunch too. And again, not from a judgmental place or not from any other place, but you can just honestly express, for an example from me, I'd be like, I would, breakfast cereal's gross. Yeah. I like to do eggs, some nice hearty eggs in the morning. Don't give me that milk with the grains and sugar. Give me some nice hearty eggs, even a duck egg. And what you'll probably get if you deliver that authentically, and you don't deliver it with judgment, you don't deliver it with fear, you just say it, is you'll probably get reactions and other opinions feeding into that. You realize no one's upset at you for saying something different. It's actually the joy of human experience, is sharing these connection points and sort of building on in one another and poking at one another in fun ways. And what you'll find is people will be like, oh, eggs are gross. You're like, what? Eggs are gross? And you can go back and forth and build that rapport, because now you're playfully disagreeing with each other, and And funny enough, like playful conflict, it's like when two baby wild animals or even kittens or something, it's like they learn to wrestle and play with each other because family members learn to wrestle and play with each other. It's like an incubation ground for real life where we learn how to have conflict with people that we love and trust. And it actually signals bonding as long as you aren't, actually blowing up into a giant conflict about whether Reese's Puffs are better than eggs, right? Like you just have a joyful conversation about that. And so that's one way, right? Is just starting to feel something come up, know that there's a hesitation. And again, this boils down to some mindfulness, right? We need to be mindful. You feel the hesitation. You feel like, oh God, I don't want to say that I like eggs. They all like cereal. That is the point where you jump in. That is the point where you go against that initial instinct because that initial instinct is what's keeping your feeling suppressed. It's keeping you down. So you can actually get that out. Whew, I like eggs. And wait and see what happens. So that's one way. Another way, and this is a little more unconventional because it's not like a strategy. It's not this technique or something you can do as easily, but it is very powerful. And in my experience, can be one of the most powerful things because what it does is we're going to want to get the mind out of its default mode network. So if you are somebody who's lonely all the time, what I loved and do still love is environments where I get out of my normal thinking forcefully almost. Like I don't have a choice but to sort of break out of it. And that might mean sitting with a lot of discomfort for hours and hours and hours. But eventually we persist through that. And I'll give you like a quick example because I know I'm kind of talking up in the air right now. Let's talk about something like a music festival, right? So what I've enjoyed in the past and what I still enjoy is I like going to music festivals and I like going to a music festival. And if you can go and not drink or use drugs or anything, that's perfect, right? An environment where you cannot be avoiding with another substance or some other way to get out of yourself, but being with yourself in an environment that's a little bit uncomfortable, but also facilitates a place where you can kind of be crazy and goofy, guilt free, pain free, kind of judgment free. Because like what's expected at a music festival, people are on drugs, people are going crazy, people are doing all kinds of things and are also just there to have a good time. And that's like an adult playground to start to try and build connection, because what you can do is you can practice dancing a little bit more crazy, right? Everybody always, before they're all messed up on drugs and things, and sometimes even when they are really tight and stiff when they dance, they kind of don't want to move too much. It's a great opportunity to get out there and move your body in ways that you feel judged. You feel like, how could anyone accept me right now? How could anybody be cool with this? They must be thinking what a goof I am, what a loser I am. And you just sit there with those thoughts and feelings as you dance and move. And the more goofy, the better. And the more crazy, kind of the better, as long as like you don't, actually like do something that's going to hurt somebody or anything. But the crazier, the better. And you just start to allow yourself to physically open up and move freely. And what we do in that experience, and this can happen in multiple ways. I'm just using dancing as an example and a music festival as an example. But in an environment like that, what can happen is you start to realize that no one is judging you. And if they are judging you, fuck them, right? And you get in that kind of mind state. And that's a very different mind state than the one that we described earlier. And what happens is that you're moving free, you're dancing, you're bouncing, you're completely letting yourself loose. And there's probably friction. You'll probably go in and out of this. It's not like all at once you break through sometimes, but not always. And you're loose. And then when you're loose and you've kind of gone first and let yourself be vulnerable at this level, you didn't have to disclose some personal childhood secrets. You didn't have to do some crazy thing you didn't have to go sit at some sharing circle or something. Oh, those can be great too. But you just moved and you open yourself up to that vulnerability. You open yourself up to be judged, to be everything. And what happens on the other side of that is tons and tons of freedom. When you get through that, what happens is your mind starts to open up and stops seeing everybody as a threat and a danger, right? And no longer is the world full of threats and dangers, and no longer are you going to have to judge every single thing you do and think and feel. And what you will notice is that everything will start to pour out of you organically. You'll start to talk more fluidly. You'll start to think more quickly. You'll have quips and jokes and things that come naturally to you very fast. And you'll want to be around people because you're feeling good in your body and in your mind, and you want to share that. That's the natural state of a human being. You're feeling great. You have so much going on. Your mind is flowing. You're at a great place, cool people, and you want to share it and you want to get to know them and you want to interact. And that's what you'll naturally start to do. You'll start to connect with people and you'll start to have conversations. You'll start to share some laughs. And this can be a very powerful training ground for breaking out of that loneliness state. When you practice this over and over again, you'll feel the shackles of your mind come on and out, come in and then come out. And you'll know when you are sitting in that restricted, a loneliness permitting place. And this can be a really good way of just practicing connection, right? There's a million ways to practice connection. Asking questions can be another beautiful one. And there's more that I'd love to go into in this video. I'm not going to go into any more today. To close out, if you're somebody who's dealing with a lot of loneliness and it's been going on for a long time, I just want to say that there is lots of hope. We are a human community, and you may not be in the right community right now. You may not be around the right people right now. It can be a big part of it. And if that's what you're feeling, if you're feeling misunderstood, you're feeling alone, you're feeling isolated, well, fear no more because there is a community for you. Join my channel right now. You just hit subscribe and comment below if you resonated with this video and just share with me a little bit. I would love to hear more about what you noticed in this video in yourself. And if you've had any techniques you've tried, share those too. And what I'll do is once you subscribe to this channel, we will now be connected. And in the near future, you will have access to a community. And in that community, there will be some group calls, there will be some live coaching sessions with some of my amazing coaches, and we will have an opportunity to go deeper and deeper into this work together. So if you enjoyed this, go ahead and follow me, subscribe, and let me know a little more about, what's going on with you. And for one, I would love to serve you and connect with you. And also, I know that there is so much more on the other side of this work. If you feel despair, if you feel alone, if you feel unsure that you can ever get through this, just know that you can. Life is a very long game and we are playing it. And there's lots of resources that we're going to dive into on the channel and together. So thank you so much for watching this very long video. And we will be in touch soon, I hope. Much love and take care.